You know the feeling before your phone even finishes buzzing. A name lights up the screen, someone you haven't heard from in weeks, maybe months, and some quiet part of you already knows what this is before you've read a single word. It's never just to check in. It's never just to see how you're doing. There's always a favor buried somewhere in the first three lines, dressed up in warmth, wrapped in a compliment, timed perfectly for whatever they need right now. You answer anyway. You always answer. And somewhere underneath the politeness, a small, cold thought passes through you, not for the first time, where were you last month? That thought isn't paranoia, it isn't bitterness. It's the first flicker of something you're about to learn to see clearly. You're the one who always shows up. The 2 a.m. phone call gets answered. The last-minute favor gets done. The ride to the airport, the emergency loan, the shoulder in the middle of someone else's collapse, you're there every time without being asked twice. You're remembered only in crisis, not on your birthday, not on an ordinary Tuesday when nothing's wrong, and a text would just be nice. Only when something breaks and someone needs a hand steady enough to fix it. And when it's over, you're thanked with words instead of reciprocity, a heartfelt message, a warm, I don't know what I'd do without you, and then silence. Until the next time they need something. Here's what that's actually been costing you. Not just your time, though it has cost you that 2 hours you'll never get back, spent solving problems that were never yours to solve. It's cost you trust. Every time you showed up and got nothing back but gratitude, you quietly recalibrated what you think you deserve, lowering the bar a little more each time without noticing you were doing it. That adds up. Years of being the reliable one, the strong one, the one who doesn't need anything back, that adds up into a version of you that's exhausted and doesn't fully know why. You're about to find out why. And it starts with a truth Machiavelli understood 500 years before your phone ever buzzed. Here's the forbidden truth. Nobody around you will say out loud, this was never bad luck, and it was never coincidence. It's a pattern. And patterns can be studied. Social psychologists have a name for what's actually happening in these relationship social exchange theory. The idea that every relationship, whether either person admits it or not, runs on an unspoken ledger of costs and rewards. Most people balance that ledger without ever thinking about it consciously. But some people learn early and instinctively that they can keep the ledger permanently unbalanced, take the reward, skip the cost, and let gratitude stand in for repayment, because gratitude is free and repayment isn't. That's not friendship gone slightly wrong. That's a one-directional transaction wearing the mask of a relationship. And once you see the mechanism, instead of just feeling the exhaustion, you stop asking what's wrong with you and start asking a much colder, much more useful question. What exactly have you been paying for? And who's been collecting? You are not the first person to feel this, and you're certainly not the first to be studied for it. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli sat down and wrote the truth about this exact pattern with a coldness most people still can't stomach. In The Prince, he observed that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. Read that again. He wasn't describing con men in back alleys. He was describing ordinary people in ordinary relationships, discovering that kindness left unchecked will always be met by someone willing to spend it. This isn't a modern glitch caused by busy schedules or bad texting etiquette. It's an old, well-documented current in human nature, and for 5 centuries, the people who understood it have had the advantage over the people who didn't. Let's start with the pattern you already felt before you had a name for it. Some people only reach out when they need something. Not out of malice, most of the time simply because somewhere along the way, they learned that you're reliable enough to lean on and forgettable enough to ignore in between. It's not personal to them. That's exactly what makes it so easy for them to keep doing it. The average mind doesn't notice this pattern because it isn't looking for one. They experience each contact as its own isolated event, a text here, a call there, never connecting the dots across months, never asking why the timing always seems to line up with someone else's bad week instead of a shared good one. The sharp mind does something different. It tracks quietly, without announcing it, without turning it into a grievance. It starts noticing who initiates contact and when, and what usually follows shortly after. Once you start tracking instead of just feeling, the pattern stops being a vague, uncomfortable suspicion and becomes something closer to data. Imagine your phone lighting up on an ordinary Thursday. You feel that small flicker of hope before you even look. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just someone thinking of you. You check it. It's them. And within 4 lines, you already know exactly why they're writing, because you've seen this shape before, a crisis, a need, a favor with your name already assigned to it. You help because that's who you are. But some part of you, the sharper part, quietly logs the date, not out of bitterness, out of pattern recognition, because the 5th time a coincidence repeats itself, it stops being one. Here's the line worth remembering. Attention that only arrives during a crisis was never about you. It was about the crisis. Weak minds mistake being needed for being valued. The two are not the same thing. And the sooner you separate them, the sooner you stop confusing your usefulness with your worth. You are not required to keep answering a phone that only rings when something is on fire. You are allowed to notice the pattern, name it clearly in your own mind, and decide calmly, without drama, exactly how much of yourself that pattern is still allowed to cost you. Drop "I see the pattern now" in the comments if you've ever caught yourself logging the dates without meaning to. Once you start tracking the pattern, you start noticing something even harder to see coming: a debt you never actually agreed to. Psychologists call the mechanism behind it the norm of reciprocity, a largely unconscious social rule that tells us the moment someone does something for us, we owe them something back. It's a useful instinct most of the time. It's also in the wrong hands a lever, because some people don't give you a favor to be generous. They give it to open an account in your name, one you never applied for with terms you were never shown. The average mind feels this as a vague, low-grade guilt it can't quite explain. Someone helped once, unprompted, small and easy to dismiss a ride, a favor, a kind word at the right moment. And now there's this quiet pressure sitting somewhere in the chest whenever that person asks for something in return. Most people comply with that pressure without ever examining where it came from. The aware mind stops and does something different. It names the debt out loud, at least to itself. I did not ask for this. This was given to me, not lent to me. And I do not owe compound interest on someone else's unsolicited kindness. Imagine it laid out plainly. Weeks ago, they covered something small for you, no strings attached, they said. Barely worth mentioning. You forgot about it within days. They didn't. Now they're standing in front of you, invoking it casually, almost lightly, as if it were always understood between you that this moment would come. Suddenly, a request that should have been a simple no has weight attached to it. Weight that was manufactured quietly, weeks in advance. Remember this: a favor with a memory attached was never a gift. It was a loan disguised as kindness, and only one side knew the interest rate. Weak minds paid debts they never signed for. Strong minds ask calmly who opened this account, and then decide on their own terms whether they ever agreed to owe anything at all. Drop "I never signed for this" in the comments if you've ever felt a small favor turn into leverage weeks later. There's a third pattern, quieter than the first two and far easier to mistake for genuine warmth. Some people don't manufacture debt with favors. They manufacture compliance with flattery, using praise as the way a locksmith uses a key, not as a gift, but as a tool built for exactly one purpose. You're so dependable, you're the only one who really gets it. Nobody else could handle this the way you do. It feels good going in. That's precisely the point. The average mind absorbs praise at face value because praise is pleasant, and questioning it feels ungrateful, even paranoid. Someone says something kind, and the natural instinct is to simply enjoy it, the same way you'd enjoy sunlight without asking what it's doing to your skin. The aware mind allows itself to feel the compliment, and then asks one more question underneath it. What is this buying the person who just said it? Not out of cynicism toward everyone, but out of precision toward the ones whose flattery always seems to arrive suspiciously close to a request. Imagine the sequence, because you've lived it before. A compliment lands first, warm and specific enough to feel sincere. You're the most capable person I know, honestly. 30 seconds later, right on schedule, comes the ask, wrapped in the glow of what was just said, so that saying no now feels like betraying the version of you they just praised. That timing is not an accident. That timing is the entire mechanism. Here's the line worth keeping. Flattery with a following favor was never about your worth. It was about your usefulness, dressed up as your worth. Weak minds mistake being praised for being seen. The strong mind lets the praise land, enjoys it if it's earned, and still checks the bill that's about to follow. Drop "I check the bill" in the comments if you've ever felt a compliment arrive suspiciously close to a request. There's a fourth pattern, and this one doesn't arrive with words at all. It arrives with the absence of them. Some people don't need to ask for anything directly because they've learned something more efficient, that pulling warmth away without explanation, without conflict, will do the asking for them. One day the messages are frequent and easy. The next, nothing. No fight happened, no line was crossed that you can point to. Just a sudden, unexplained quiet where connection used to be. And a version of you left, standing there, wondering what you did wrong. The average mind experiences that silence as discomfort to be fixed fast. It reaches out, apologizes for nothing in particular, overcorrects, does whatever it takes to restore the warmth that vanished without warning because the silence feels unbearable, and unbearable things get chased away. The aware mind recognizes something different underneath that same silence. Not peace, not distance. A lever being pulled patiently by someone who already knows exactly how uncomfortable you find the quiet and exactly how quickly you'll move to end it. Imagine the pattern once you finally see its shape. Weeks of coldness, unexplained and unresolved, and then, right when you're needed for something, the warmth switches back on like it was never gone sudden, calculated, almost too well timed to be coincidence. You feel relief before you feel suspicion. That's by design. Intermittent warmth trains a mind faster than constant warmth ever could, because uncertainty keeps you reaching, and reaching keeps you compliant. Here's the line worth remembering. Silence used as leverage was never peace, it was a switch, and someone else was holding it. Weak minds chase the quiet to make it stop. Strong minds let the quiet sit there unchased until whoever created it either explains themselves honestly or reveals exactly what they were using it for. Drop "I stopped chasing the silence" in the comments if you've ever felt warmth return the moment you were needed again. There's a fifth pattern, and it's the one that ties every other pattern together because it's the one you never sat down to calculate until now. All of it, the convenience contact, the manufactured debt, the flattery with a price tag, the silence used as a switch, has a real cost. Not a metaphorical one, an actual cost in hours, in energy, in emotional labor spent solving problems that were never yours, and you have never once added it up. That's not generosity, that's an unpriced service, and someone has been receiving it for free. The average mind keeps giving without counting because counting feels transactional, even a little ugly, and good people aren't supposed to keep score. So the giving continues, invisible and unlogged, one favor at a time, none of them large enough on their own to seem worth mentioning. The aware mind finally stops and does the math. Not to become bitter, to become accurate. Because you cannot fix a problem you've refused to measure, and you cannot protect a resource you've never once written down the value of. Imagine sitting with a blank page and actually listing it. Every ride, every loan, Every 2 a.m. phone call answered, every crisis absorbed, every ounce of energy spent holding someone else together, one column, filling fast. Now look at the other column, the one meant to hold what came back. It's thin. In some relationships, it's empty. Seeing both columns side by side in plain writing does something that feeling alone never could. It turns a vague, exhausted suspicion into an undeniable fact staring back at you from the page. Here's the line that matters most out of everything you've heard tonight. Unpriced generosity isn't a virtue, it's an invoice nobody ever intends to pay. Weak minds keep the ledger unbalanced forever, mistaking exhaustion for love. Strong minds finally price what they give, and once it's priced, it can never quietly be taken for free again. Drop "I finally did the math" in the comments if you've ever added it up and been shocked by what the two columns actually looked like. So look at what you've actually been carrying this whole time. The convenience contact that only lit up during someone else's crisis. The manufactured debt from a favor you never asked for. The flattery that arrived 30 seconds before a request. The silence used as a switch. Warmth restored the instant you were needed again. And underneath all four, the fifth pattern tying them together, a ledger you never balanced. Generosity given out for years and never once priced. 5 patterns, 1 truth. This was never your kindness being rewarded. It was your kindness being metabolized quietly by people who never intended to give anything back and who counted on you never sitting down to count. That's why this kept happening, relationship after relationship, without you ever quite being able to name it. Not because something was wrong with your generosity, but because your generosity was never the problem, your pricing was. And here's what happens the moment you fix that pricing for good. You stop mistaking being needed for being valued. You stop absorbing manufactured debt from favors you never agreed to. You stop letting a compliment soften you up for a request. And you stop chasing silence that was never peace to begin with. Your time gets a cost again. Your attention gets a cost again. Your loyalty stops being the one resource in your life available to anyone for free indefinitely. Weak minds keep discovering this same pattern for the rest of their lives, one exhausting relationship at a time. That's no longer your future. You've seen the mechanism now, the way Machiavelli saw it 5 centuries ago. And once you've seen it, it never fully hides from you again. So now you know. 5 patterns. And if you're honest with yourself, you didn't just recognize one of them tonight. You probably felt the specific uncomfortable click of recognition on at least 2 or 3, maybe all 5. Each one landing like a name, finally attached to something you'd only ever felt before. That's not coincidence. That's 500 years of human nature confirmed in your own life. Comment right now with which pattern hit hardest: the convenience contact, the manufactured debt, the flattery, the silence, or the cost you never priced. Name it. Let it sit there in the comments as proof that this was never random, and it was never your fault for being generous. If this video finally gave you language for something you felt for years without being able to explain it, subscribe to this channel and turn on the bell, because there's more waiting for minds sharp enough to keep seeing the mechanism clearly. You were never too generous. You were never too kind, too loyal, too easy to lean on. You were simply unpriced, giving real value to people who never once wrote down what they owed. The moment you start pricing what you give, the users lose their favorite resource, and you finally keep what was always yours to begin with. You were never too generous. You were just unpriced.